only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to the 612 Vikings podcast. I'm your host, Dustin and Drew, back at it again for another episode. Today, we got a whole agenda of topics to talk about. Again, in the month of June, we got so many meaty topics to talk about, especially about the Minnesota Vikings. And so Drew, if you want to introduce yourself yet again for the people that don't know you.
If you're new to the episode, I'm the co-host, Drew. If you want to follow Dustin, you can follow him right below where it says That Vikings Fan. That'll be on his TikTok, or if you want to follow him on Twitter, you can follow him at Dust_NFL. And if you want to follow yours truly, you can follow me at Skull.tv, which is my handle right below for TikTok. And if you want to see some good memes over there, any opinions or anything like that over there, and then as well as Twitter, you can follow me at SkullTV_ over there as well.
Yeah, you guys won't regret it. You guys make sure you follow Drew and myself for the best Vikings content there is around. So, yeah, let's get right into this. JJ McCarthy. There was a post by, I think, The Athletic earlier today that said, there's basically paraphrasing. There's a less than 10% chance that JJ McCarthy starts the year or just starts in general. And we've kind of touched on this topic before where, KOC has, certain milestones for JJ McCarthy to even get playing time this year. And that just kind of falls into that category of, will he be ready to start? Will he be a second stringer, third stringer, anything like that? So less than 10% chance, isn't very good for the first round pick, top 10 pick. But what's your opinions on this one? It's just kind of expected that Sam Darnold will start this year, which I think most Vikings fans are fine with.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Vikings fans, the Vikings brass out there, they're showing they're willing to be patient with a guy like McCarthy. Some guys, like CJ Stroud, you just kind of I call them the microwavable meals, the Uncle Ben's rice. They're good, it's reliable. They can just pop it in for 30 seconds to a minute and they're ready to go. Some quarterbacks aren't like that. Some of them are kind of like a pot roast or a Thanksgiving dinner. Kind of have to be patient with it, take it a little bit of time with it to get that perfection. We've seen that with guys like Aaron Rodgers. We've seen that guys with Patrick Mahomes. So some of the great, more talented quarterbacks that we've seen over the last 15 years have sat for a year or so, some more than others. But, Jordan Love looks like he's kind of following that train as well, if he can, show that up for next year. But I'm not really too worried about this. I think that, like you said earlier, the milestones that he has set, I think it's just showing that he has these high standards and he has like these essentially a championship standard quarterback that he wants, and he needs to have McCarthy hit that in order for him to start. And, they're willing to be patient. And like I said, like we've been saying the past few episodes, this is more of a bridge year. If you stink and you're a 5-win team, we all know this team has talent. You can go get another blue chip prospect to go surround, your future franchise quarterback with. Or, if you're good, great. You've set a winning culture that, it shows that, O'Connell's the guy, that he is the guy for a head coach. So, but yeah, I think I'm really excited for what JJ McCarthy brings. And I'm not really too worried about what this whole 10% chance of starting. So.
Yeah, I'll read kind of the full quote just so you guys know, and I'm not, just paraphrasing for you guys. But per Albert Breer, he puts the odds of Vikings rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy starting week 1. So actually starting the season, just not at any point, but just week 1, at less than 10%, and Sam Darnold will be enough to keep the bar high for JJ McCarthy to get on the field. So that's not, any affront to McCarthy. By all accounts, had a fine spring in Minnesota. More so about Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. I don't know about you, but I believe in Sam Darnold, especially with the supporting cast that he has in Minnesota, opposed to, New York and Carolina. In San Francisco, he was a backup, so that really doesn't count. But it'll be super interesting to see what Sam Darnold brings to this Vikings offense. He has a little bit of mobility too, which will help. He has, a little bit of arm talent too. So I'm excited to see how Sam Darnold plays this year, and I think Vikings fans will be excited to see whatever quarterback does plug in and play with the Vikings.
Yeah, for sure. Like we've been saying, if it's Sam Darnold, we'll see how that goes. And like we've been saying, it's a bridge here, so I'm not too worried about this upcoming season. I don't have any set expectations like I've had in years past. Um, but I'm excited for the season to start, see some players develop, especially on the defensive end. So I think it'll be a fun year this year, regardless.
Yeah, like you said before, regardless if we make the playoffs, if we don't make the playoffs, if we go 5-12 or whatever it is, I think it's kind of like a free space card, like on a bingo card. It doesn't matter what you do this year. It's a win-win scenario. Obviously, the Vikings don't look at it that way because they want to win as many games as possible, make it to the playoffs. Anything can happen in the playoffs. That's kind of always been the Wilf's motto too. Is be good enough to make it to the playoffs. Playoffs are a different animal, which yes, they are, but at the same time, you still want a good team. You want to be you want to be in the playoffs consistently, and I think that's what the Vikings need to do. In these next couple of years, is just be there consistently, not this every other year like Mike Zimmer was. I don't even know when the last time the Vikings made the playoffs in back-to-back years and actually weren't bounced in the first round either. So I think this winning, mentality in Minnesota will definitely help.
Yeah, if you're talking about winning back-to-back postseason games and back-to-back years, I think you're looking at more that Chris Carter, Randy Moss era. The last time the Vikings have made back-to-back postseason appearances, however, you're looking at the 08-09 season. So it's been a hot minute for the Vikings fans to see the team in the postseason dance in back-to-back years. But especially
Almost
being that
20 years.
juggernaut, be that juggernaut essentially like we were with Moss and Carter in the late '90s. So we'll see how I think this team has a good shot of doing it. If you build it right, the good things will happen, and I think they're doing it the right way.
Yeah, for sure. And it'll be super interesting. I'm excited. I'm excited for that. So. All right, guys, before we get into our next topic here, I do want to give a shout out to SeatGeek. Make sure you guys watch this video and I'll explain how it all works. All right, guys, make sure you guys go download the app SeatGeek or use the website as well. Use code THATVIKINGSFAN for $20 off your first purchase. Even if you go to like a baseball game, a concert, if you buy a $20, $25 ticket, you're really only paying $5 for that, which is pretty sweet if you ask me. So make sure you guys go download SeatGeek, use code THATVIKINGSFAN for $20 off. So yeah, into our next topic here. Speaking of former, or I guess first round picks, Lewis Cine and I guess a second, third round pick in Andrew Booth, not looking great for those two, I guess, 2022 picks in that draft class. I guess that whole draft class is an abomination, but Lewis Cine, man, it's not looking great for him. There's been recent reports of him not a great chance of him making the roster. It's kind of like an uphill climb for him to make it, essentially. So, I don't know what kind of expectations there are for someone like Lewis Cine in a very loaded safety room with Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, Theo Jackson, and newly not acquired safety, but new in the safety room, I'll say, is Najee Thompson. Najee Thompson is going from cornerback to safety, which is actually super interesting. And again, doesn't look good for Lewis Cine.
Yeah, we're kind of looking back to that 2022 class. It kind of sucks because I feel that those guys defensively were drafted more for the Donatel defense, which is night and day
Oh, yeah.
different from the Brian Flores defense. So if you all remember, the Donatel defense was we'll say very passive. They're very drop guys into coverage, confuse the defense, and create turnovers that way, like interceptions and whatnot. Lewis Cine is, I kind of thought maybe he'd be like a Harrison Smith replacement, the way he kind of plays the game. Similar to him, he could play up in the box, he could drop back into coverage. I think that was kind of the hope for me, at least. But, like I said, these were kind of the Donatel defensive guys, and I think these guys are not really built schematically for the Brian Flores defense. But, I will say Andrew Booth on the thing that's going for him is he did kind of show out a little bit at the end of the season. He played a lot of snaps, played a lot of passing downs, didn't really get the ball thrown his way a lot. That can mean a whole lot of things, that maybe he's starting to pick it up a little bit. Maybe they just weren't throwing his way and they were getting some help, like some safety help or something. But, if I had to pick a guy between Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth, if they were to fight for that final roster spot, I probably would lean Andrew Booth, because I feel like there's more opportunity to play in the corner room, unlike the safety room for Lewis Cine, which is really unfortunate because he was a first round pick, and to give up on him so quickly, especially after that broken leg and at the Tottenham Stadium in London, it just really wasn't meant to be. And and we'll see how he does. And if this is the end of the Lewis Cine legacy in Minnesota, we'll see how he does with we'll see how he does with another NFL team from there.
Yeah, guys, don't shed a tear yet. Don't shed a tear. I know it's very sad, but don't do it quite yet. No, but speaking of Lewis Cine in the safety room, like even with Harrison Smith taking, I guess you want to call it like snaps off or limited snaps this year, because of his age. I mean, he's still a productive player, but because of his age, Lewis Cine is really, I don't know. I think last year it kind of got leaked that he just couldn't grasp the playbook, couldn't understand it, put it all together, which, it's not for everybody. Brian Flores' defense, that scheme is a very complex. You got to know what you're doing, be there at the right time, the ins and outs and everything. So not every player's going to understand it. So it's unfortunate to see a former first round pick like Lewis Cine kind of be in that situation. And everything that he's been through. Someone like Theo Jackson that came over from the Titans that a lot of Vikings fans didn't even know the name of, has now been in a key role, played well last year when he did play. And Brian Flores likes to use that 3 safety set, and Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, with a rotation of Theo Jackson in there, and then maybe Najee Thompson as well. It'll be super interesting. And then Andrew Booth, I think he played well last year, enough to obviously get some snaps, but at the same time, our corner room just isn't very thick at all. It's a very thin room from last year at least. And then this year you get Shaq Griffin, you bring back Brian Murphy for another year. We didn't resign him, but he's still back in that room. Mekhi Blackman's going to be a breakout player, hopefully. You just got some other people in there as well. Kyrie Thompson
Kyrie Jackson.
Jackson. I don't know why I was thinking Thompson. I was thinking Najee. But no, I think we got a good corner room as well. As long as they stay healthy, I think we'll have a pretty good corner room. And I don't know if there's more opportunity for Najee Thompson to play at safety or at corner, but either way, it looks like he is not a lock to make the roster, but a very good persuasion to make the team at least. So it'll be super interesting.
Yeah, and another thing too is kind of a forgotten player in that safety room is Jay Ward, who some reports, some reports I'm seeing from some guys saying Jay Ward's kind of looking a little bit more explosive this year. So that's why I kind of to kind of restate the point I made earlier. I think this is more of an Andrew Booth, more likely of making it than Lewis Cine. But and Booth too. I mean, he pretty much, I wouldn't say he beat him out per se, but Caleb Evans was benched towards like the latter half of that season. Andrew Booth kind of started seeing some more snaps as well. So if that play can kind of transition into this upcoming off season and during mini camp, I think I mean, maybe a Caleb Evans is the guy. I do feel like there's going to be some familiar guy that Kwesi's drafted that he's going to have to cut, and it's going to be somebody from this 2022 class. So it'll be a guy drafted probably in the first 4 rounds, but we'll see how this kind of all shakes up going into next season.
Yeah, and it'll be super interesting. Like I said, I think we got a good group of guys in the backfield, or not the backfield, but the defensive backfield, I'll say. So yeah, it'll be, like I said, super interesting. Another guy to keep an eye on is Jalen Redmond from, what was it, the UFL or XFL, whatever he came from.
The newly founded UFL that is owned by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, so yeah, it'll be super interesting for him. He's a newcomer. The Vikings just signed him a day or two ago. I guess he performed very well in the UFL as well. I think the Vikings are definitely looking for that, I guess, monster in the middle of the line. You have Harrison Phillips, which, yeah, he's a good player. I wouldn't say he's a great player, but I would love for the Vikings to get that. You don't have to get an Aaron Donald type guy, but just the mentality, someone that can win in the middle. Just a big guy, clogs up the middle, whatever. And I'm hoping that Jalen Redmond becomes that guy. First he has to make the roster. I get that. But in the preseason, that's where you're going to shine. And the Vikings really haven't had a dominant interior rush since, Linval Joseph, Tom Johnson,
Yeah.
I guess Sebastian Thunderbucket, a lot of people like to refer to him as, but
yeah,
it's definitely been a while since we had that guy up the middle, especially to stop the run as well.
Yeah, Jalen Redmond's kind of that pass rushing guy. So my guess is probably in the 3-4. You're probably looking at him as being more of that 5 technique, that 3-4 defensive end, kind of where Jerry Tillery will play on that other. So if he does get some snaps, it'd be on the other end of that. But he performed really well at the UFL level. I mean, he put up a pretty good PFF grade if you're really into that. Some people buy it, some people don't. Analytically speaking, he did really well, which if you're kind of a casual, with all due respect, Vikings fan, our guy is a very analytics driven guy. He came from the Paul D. Podesta general managing tree, from the movie Moneyball, if from Peter Brand. So he comes from that general managing tree. So it's very analytics based. But he did pretty well, put up 4.5 sacks from the interior in 8-10 games, which is pretty good, on the interior at least. So we'll see what he does. And, if this is going to be something else to keep a note on, this is a weird fact, but since the USFL, XFL, these secondary leagues have been created, there has been at least one All-Pro player that has been a first-team All-Pro that is like a rookie per se, that has been on that All-Pro list. So we go back a couple of years ago, it was Kavontae Turpin, and then we will go to last year, it was Brandon Aubrey, both from the Dallas Cowboys. But my point being is, I'm not saying you have to expect an All-Pro year out of him. I think that'd be kind of a unrealistic expectation. But my point is more that these guys from the UFL, the XFL, USFL, they are making impacts in the NFL starting from year one. So granted, those guys are special teams, but that's still an important facet of the game as well. But I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a young guy, but and there's still some other guys out there too. We have Emmanuel Agba as well. He was from Brian Flores is a defense in Miami, and he also played for Cleveland, which is where Kwesi comes from. So I think that's another name to keep an eye on in the interior too, to get to build up some more depth in the defensive line.
Yeah, there really isn't too much for, I guess, the monster guys in free agency right now either for that interior defensive line. But I don't know. Like I said, I hope Jalen Redmond is that guy that comes in and just dominates in the interior, because, like I said, we need somebody like that. And I don't know. Like I said, the last time that we had that was probably Linval Joseph and so on from that era of Mike Zimmer football. So yeah, well, we'll see how that transpires. And yeah, I'm super excited for that as well. So
Yeah, and we'll take another commercial break here at the Underdog Fantasy. And if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you can sign up using the code THATVIKINGSFAN, and you can match your first deposit up to $250 there. You can pick a higher or lower. You can go up to 20 times the bet, and sometimes they'll have some spicy picks. You can have 100 times the bet. And you can do a vast variety of sports. You can do basketball, baseball. Yours truly with the Minnesota Vikings. There's also some hockey bets if you're into that with the state of hockey up in Minnesota. But like I said, I'm really big into Underdog as well. I like the insurance bets too, which is the only betting site where you can do that as well. So
yep.
I always feel like I'm that one leg short on my parlay. So insure your bets. You can get 4 out of 5, and you can still win some money there.
Like I said last time, Drew, would you rather win no money or a little bit of money? It's a no-brainer there.
Yep,
So.
exactly. You want to win something rather than nothing. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of taking some losses, I would say we got the JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner first pitch debacle.
All right, you
At
guys
the
get to watch this clip before we get into this. I'll see if I can maneuver this, but
yeah.
let's see. Those of you that are watching on the YouTube audience, we'll try this, I guess, and we'll switch. No, we can't switch around. Okay. What about this? Hold on. I'm still new to this. Oh no, we don't want that. Okay, hold on. Ready? Yeah, so that was JJ McCarthy's first pitch. Dallas Turner also had a go at that as well. So I don't know, not a good look for the first pitch for the two former first round picks. So
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
Baseball and football are very different sports. We'll just say that. We've seen guys like Tom Brady. He's done the exact same thing. Maybe it's just a Michigan thing. I don't know. But if you guys don't remember, what was it, like 5-10 years ago, I think after a Super Bowl win, Tom Brady goes to Boston to throw out the first pitch, and it was pretty bad. I would say almost 50-cent first pitch bad. So
Spiked that then, basically.
yeah, essentially, yeah, it was a pretty bad pitch. And the funnier thing is too is Tom Brady, I believe, was drafted to be a MLB player at some point as well, like in the later rounds. So
even like Patrick Mahomes did this too, and he was horrible at that as well. And he was a baseball guy too. So it's baseball, football are two different things. I just want to say this as well is good thing throwing your first pitch at a baseball game doesn't transpire to being how good you are of a quarterback in the NFL.
So yeah, like I said, it might just be a Michigan 10th pick overall in the blood. I don't know what's going on there, but like I said, Brady, Michigan guy, Patrick Mahomes, 10th overall pick, just like JJ McCarthy. So maybe it was just destined to happen. But if that's the case, then I'll certainly take those football careers for Minnesota. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. And Dallas Turner, that's a whatever thing.
He's not a quarterback.
He's there to stop the passers from essentially not throw them. So I don't want to see him throwing any passes in the NFL. So
I think I saw somebody say after McCarthy did that pitch is the catcher ran the wrong route, so it was his fault and not McCarthy's fault. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah. Like I said, people are gonna bust the Vikings fans' chops and all that, and say that he's gonna be a bust. So there's a point I kind of want to bring up with this too is the McCarthy hate. I've kind of sifted through all this hate, and I do feel like McCarthy's probably the one guy who I feel like is getting the most hate. Maybe Bo Nix is probably right there with him. I mean, Michael Penix is only getting hate just because he went to a team that didn't need a quarterback. I don't think they're hating on him as a player more than anything. So, but the Twitter GMs, I feel like, have got it kind of. Let's just say they're not the most reliable general managers out there, because last year they said CJ Stroud was going to be a bust because of his S2 cognitive score, and look how that worked out. We kind of take it back a couple years prior to that. they said those guys from 2022, they said, Trevor Lawrence really wasn't going to be anything because he was going to a poverty franchise. That was another one. Not as common, but, Mac Jones was probably the one I felt like got the most hate. Made a Pro Bowl his rookie year. Unfortunately, the Patriots, dynasty was kind of at its end, essentially, so there really wasn't much to really build around. So, I was never really a Mac Jones guy. I just unfortunately didn't work out, but year one was pretty exciting for Mac Jones, to say the least. In that previous year, we kind of take it back to the Kenny Pickett. There really wasn't a guy in that first round that no one was really kind of hyping anybody up in the first round. It felt like, if there was, it was maybe Malik Willis, but it was more just to have a quarterback in the first round. But I didn't really see anyone that was really worth anything to be kind of talked about like that. But you bring it back to 2020. The most famous ones, I think the most obvious ones I would probably say are Justin Herbert. He got a ton of slack and a ton of hate for going to the Chargers and, being this. No one really liked him because he came from Oregon. So the concept around him was that, no Oregon quarterback was good, even though Dan Fouts went there and was a pretty good quarterback himself. But the concept was that Oregon can't develop quarterbacks, kind of similar to C.J. Stroud with the Ohio State thing, too. That was kind of the narrative about it. And then even kind of later in that first round, you had Jordan Love, kind of got hated for a different reason, was just more like the Packers didn't need a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers was coming off an MVP season, and then they drafted his replacement. So that's kind of the reason why if he got hate was more for that. But, and then you kind of take it back the year prior to that, Kyler Murray, the Heisman winner, no, people are saying that he should have done baseball because he was drafted by the Oakland A's. That was, I think, the 7th pick, 9th pick in the draft there. Didn't sign there, obviously. But the other thing was his height. People are still making the little people jokes with him, calling him like a Yoda kind of guy. I mean, that's still following. Yep, exactly. Following his career still there. But yeah, like I said, I'm not buying whatever people are going to say. They're just going to say. And I feel like, honestly, if you're getting hated on more now, I feel like that kind of transpires to a better career later on. I feel like, I don't know. It's just, I guess the point is just more the Twitter GMs have not really been right. So don't take it to heart because some guy just said JJ McCarthy's a bust. Let them actually play. That's why they actually play their careers the way they do. So give it some time and we'll see how he does.
Kind of like you said to open up the show is, some quarterbacks are kind of like the rotisserie chicken, the meal like that, where it takes a little bit to get them prepared, get them to, play right or, whatever. And then there's some quarterbacks that are like, instant ramen, it takes a minute or two to make them. So with JJ McCarthy, I hope it's, a little bit of both, where it takes a little bit of time, maybe a year to develop him, get him to play right. And then he's in there right away. But, if it's a Jordan Love situation, I don't think it will be because I don't think the Vikings re-signed Sam Darnold for any reason. I just don't see that happening. Even if, I don't know, if he brings him to a Super Bowl, wins him a Super Bowl, do you still re-sign Sam Darnold? I know that's a whole other topic for another video, but
yeah, it's funny because Jaden from Jaden's Jerseys, also owns a TPT podcast. You can go check him out over there on YouTube as well. But he asked me that same question. I think for that to happen, I think it would have to be he'd have to probably put up close to Kirk numbers, maybe kind of around that Geno number. But I think if it's he has that Geno number and then does the postseason success, I feel like you kind of have to. Okay. But because I feel like Sam Darnold does have some talent. You don't get drafted in the first round to be horrible. There's obviously something there. I don't know if it's just the development in New York just really killed him, and Carolina really killed him with Matt Rule. So he was just at a good franchise, stable franchise. Just went to the Super Bowl in San Francisco. Maybe that was his year to kind of relearn how to play football again, kind of sit on the bench, kind of transfer over to a similar system with that McVay style system with O'Connell and the Vikings. So maybe something does happen, but it's hard to tell because I think for Darnold to get another contract, I think he has to have. It's kind of similar to McCarthy earlier, where you're saying he's got certain benchmarks. Do I think like Darnold could? I mean, anything's possible. I mean, absolutely could. I mean, Brock
Yeah.
Purdy came in, trumped Trey Lance, and he was the number 3 overall pick, the third quarterback taken.
Mr.
So anything's,
Relevant.
yeah, exactly. Anything's possible. If Sam Darnold's the hot hand and you're winning games with him and you're winning like because of him, I think that's when you have to sit back and go, yeah, we have to re-sign this guy. But I think if it's like one of those scenarios where we're winning with him, maybe that's where the discussion starts to happen a little bit. But you know, me personally, I think McCarthy's ceiling is a lot higher. You have the cap control under him, so I think that's something to also take into effect as well. So if it's a little bit of a skill decrease per se, maybe like the slightest of slivers, but you have those 3 years to kind of build around him to make him look better. I think that would probably be something that is on the table as well. So, you know, it's definitely an interesting discussion, like you said, for a future show. But I feel that's kind of like the quick, maybe minute tangent about what I was saying earlier about Darnold there.
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely be. I think we should make that a topic of just different scenarios of I don't know if it's a realistic scenario. I mean, it could be, but just fun little scenarios in the month of June to create. So I think that'd be a really fun topic to talk about. So yeah. Other than that, I'm super excited for I guess Najee Thompson to make his debut at safety, see how he plays there. Um, Jalen Redmond to be that interior defensive guy, and then JJ McCarthy, see if he pans out this year. So yeah, that's all that we have for you in today's 612 Vikings episode. Make sure you guys go follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, 612 Vikings, and on Twitter or X at 612 Vikings. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Skull Vikes.